35 years ago today, President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas as he toured the Lone Star State in an effort to shore up his re-election bid. And even though it's long been thought that a lone gunman was to blame, there are a whole lot of people who still believe that that murder was part of a larger conspiracy. Joining us this morning is author Harrison Edward Livingstone, the author of the newly released book, High Treason. Mr. Livingstone, welcome.
Thank you.
Good morning. You have done 4 books on this subject. Why do you and so many other Americans care so much about what happened?
Well, I think all of us who were alive when John Kennedy was president cared very much for him and what happened to him. It was clear to us at the time that there was a conspiracy.
Now, quote, you say basically in the book, quote, all the evidence in the case was faked. We must now suspend our disbelief and approach the case from an entirely different direction. That's a pretty broad statement to make.
Yes, until I got into it, no one questioned the authenticity of the official evidence. Last year, Gerald Ford admitted that he changed the language of the Warren report and altered the medical evidence of a bullet 6 inches down on John Kennedy's back. Now we have criminal evidence having been presented just last week by George Lardner in the Washington Post and Deb Reitman on the AP. This flows from a secret investigation of the claims that I'm making in my writing on that medical evidence. And we have now got a case that can go before a grand jury.
Now, let's break this down for people just a bit here. You suggest, or you say in your book, that the autopsy reports, the photographs, were faked, and that the doctors who did it, who look at those photographs today and say, that's not the person we looked at.
That's right. The photographer who took the photographs of the body told the Assassination Records Review Board that the photographs of the brain and evidence are simply not John Kennedy's brain, and they're not his pictures. The woman who processed the photographs at Anacostia at the naval base there told the board in her depositions at the end of my book that the photographs of the body in the National Archives are not the pictures that she processed and developed. This is very strong evidence of criminality and a faked trail in the case when you couple it with the fact that the bullet wounds have moved a number of inches both on the back and on the head. They moved 4 inches up higher on the head. This was to make plausible shot from that 6th floor window.
Now, I think we're looking at a copy of the famous, I guess as you would probably think now, infamous Zapruder film, which was filmed by a dressmaker at the time who actually filmed the assassination. He wants, or his family wants, millions of dollars from the U.S. government for this film. You say that the film's a fake.
Well, yes, there are scenes in the film that we do not see in other films of the murder. Clint Hill testified that he put Jacqueline in the back seat and put his arms around her and placed her there. And you do see this in another film, but it doesn't happen in the Zapruder film.
So how would it be possible to fake something like this?
Well, they removed, let's say they removed every other frame in places because the cart did stop during the shooting, and you don't see it in the film. It's quite clear that a large segment of the film was removed after the 3 motorcycle policemen appear, and then then you see the limousine all of a sudden. We studied in the National Archives in January and February all copies of the film, and it's quite clear that there are no overexposed frames at that point. Therefore, there was a large piece of the film that's been removed from it.
Well, why would anyone go to so much trouble to create a conspiracy like this? I think that's probably the big question for those who might be skeptical, quite frankly.
At the time of the murder, everyone in the country pretty much suspected that either Lyndon Johnson or the people surrounding him were responsible for that murder. J. Edgar Hoover was one of the most sinister people in our history, and I believe that he was responsible for other murders, including that of Martin Luther King. The key thing here is that there was a powerful group in Dallas and Fort Worth who greatly feared John Kennedy. They knew he was going to be reelected, and they had invested their oil profits very heavily in the defense industry that they were building up in Dallas and Fort Worth. Kennedy's withdrawal from Vietnam triggered his death.
So you believe that the conspiracists in Dallas and in Texas in general are the ones that ordered that murder, really? You're suggesting that?
Yes, they all conspired together. They were all related. The mayor of Dallas, his brother was the deputy director of the CIA, who was fired by John Kennedy, along with Allen Dulles, and Allen Dulles ended up on the Warren Commission, which was composed of Kennedy's political enemies to a large extent.
Now, you know the problem with this, I think from just looking in from the outside, is that so many people would have to be in on something like this and be prepared to continue to lie about it for decades and decades. Why would they bother?
That's been the common complaint about conspiracy theories, but when you have in any city a close-knit group of powerful people who basically conspire to control that city and its economy and society, as you did in Dallas, they were in a position to make this happen. The shooters even were more or less in the family. It was one large extended family, very brutal people. They were right-wing extremists. They would kill people to get an oil lease. They would do anything basically to attain their ends.
Was Jack Ruby the man who killed the assassin, the person we believe killed Kennedy? Was he in on it?
I don't believe that he had foreknowledge of the assassination, but he certainly was ordered to kill Lee Harvey Oswald. We know that because he called the police station the night before and he asked the dispatcher to change the transfer route. He didn't give his name, but the dispatcher knew him and knew that that's whom he was speaking with.
And so he was in on it as well. Well, what do you feel? How do you feel now about Kennedy buffs, the people who have spent the last 30 years, last 3 decades looking into this on their own and becoming some sort of obsessive about it?
Yeah, Derek, it's very unfortunate that we would be known as buffs. The Warren Report was a mere theory. I deal in hard evidence. The people that work with me are scientists, doctors, physicists, mathematicians, and so on. The Warren Report was a theory. We are coming forward, and the Assassination Records Review Board, depositions and interviews and reports by their staff constitute criminal evidence in this case.
So what do you want, very quickly?
This case must go before a grand jury at once, if possible, because the witnesses are getting older and are dying. It's critically important that we get them to tell the truth, and some people are going to have to be indicted as a means of getting that truth out. We can't have violence and assassination as a political instrument in this nation. Mr.
Livingstone, we got to go, but I want to thank you. Fascinating evidence and interesting conversation. The book is called High Treason, The Assassination of JFK and the Case for Conspiracy. Again, Harrison Edward Livingstone, thank you much. We appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, bye-bye.